Okay, this is a fantastically ambitious project. Please take your seat because we're going to do the questions via panel. May we please have Carolyn up and Chris again. And Dimitri, you're up. And please, I will sort of moderate some questions. And I want to show and hear from Carolyn, who is joining us from South Africa. It's a treat because normally it's very hard. And I know we're going over time, but give us 10 minutes to give you this. Anybody who wants to leave, of course, they can, apart from the AV people. So may we have Carolyn up on the screen, please? Is it coming? And Carolyn and Chris, they are on the webinar. They should be up on the screen. No?
It's just us.
No, they're going to put them up, right? No? Yes? They're saying it's coming. But in any case, the project that was just described, it was one of those palate cleansers that I wanted to put in at the end of... Oh, there she is, Carolyn. Okay, so let me introduce Carolyn now, that she's here. Carolyn is a banker. She came to MIT for an executive education class I was running that is called Lab to Market the MIT Way for Sloan School of Business, School of Management. And I did not want to be sponsored by a bank to do any research because I thought banks were predatorial and not really cool technology places. However, Carolyn convinced me that that's not the case. And that's because we coalesced around this idea of the banks changing their mission to become the system necessary to create people rich enough to need a bank. And with that, I want to put this question to Carolyn, and then I'll put it also to the crowd. Tell us a little bit about your experience bringing this to the world, because it is really because of her insistence that MIT got involved. It is because of her ability to bring money that we managed to pay Chris and myself and all the researchers and create this giant site in Namibia. So Carolyn, tell us a little bit about your experience bringing this to life.
Hi, Andreas. Thank you so much, and it's such a privilege. Thank you for the invitation. Such a privilege to be here and good to see you all, although it's on screen. Experience, well, Andreas, I mean, you've been with us from before this was even a possibility. I can say life-changing, mind-blowing, but challenging, especially trying to do something like this technology in a bank where it's completely separate and different to anything one would naturally do in a bank. So yeah, it's been a wild ride, amazingly humbling. And I think without fail, I think most of us, everyone involved in this, as well as the executives at the organization, mind blown about how well it's been going and what has been achieved in such a short time.
Yes, and I know that we have Carolina here, who's our co-organizer. She actually came to Namibia. Maybe you should join us up here because she's part of the MicroHub project. And as Carolina is coming up here, I wanted to ask Dimitri here to tell us how do you see this coming from Africa back to America via IRENA? This is usually the opposite. Usually technologies go from America to Africa. Here we're having a technology come from Africa to America. What are the legal and other interesting challenges that you can foresee?
Hold it. I mean, you said in Namibia the following. You said that this is technology that supposedly we're taking to space.
Yes, the Namibian house that will go to Mars.
Right. And then you reverse that.
Now the Namibian house is coming to America.
Right.
Before it goes to Mars.
Right. So from my point of view, I mean, working with Andreas is, of course, a privilege. I mean, all of you probably know if you had any kind of a, sort of association with him. He's inspiring, but everybody that's involved in the project also have the same kind of an energy. And it kind of shows me, we lawyers tend to think we know it all. But I think I realized how little I know. And every time I come to this place, I realize that I don't know much. And I think learning that we can be fair to, the environment is not something that comes naturally to us, I think, because we are so driven by money, by glory, by accomplishing a lot of different things. And here we are, you and I were like pulling the bricks out of that oven and doing all these little things and talking to people who are very simple and living in shacks. And here we are learning about the simple things in life. And I think we have to get to that. So for me, taking that project from Namibia, a place we probably don't see mentioned in the United States very often, because every time I talk to my friends and I say, "Oh, I went to Namibia," and they're like, "What? What? Where? What?" So, most of us never have had, well, we've never had the privilege of doing that, but now bringing all that stuff from Namibia to a place like Austin, and, again, meeting someone like her, who is like driven by a lot of social values, makes me just want to remove my tie and say, listen, I don't want to have a label. I'm not a lawyer in this world. I'm not, And this is a lesson from Andreas, that we shouldn't have labels, perhaps. And I think that's what she's doing. I mean, she came out of MIT. She did all that stuff, the amazing stuff for IBM and a lot of, wonderful things. But now you bring all that experience and all that to what? To something that has a social value and a social component. And at the end of the day, isn't that the most important thing?
Absolutely. So I wanted to also ask Carolyn and Carolina and Irina.
Not me?
No,
Oh.
no, because I go by sex now. They're all three are in male-dominated fields, and all three have faced sexism and other things. And I wonder if you can talk about your experience in entering the. I mean, for instance, Carolyn has given a fantastic lecture for Bloomberg addressing this, and we see that giant organizations often are the last to come to this, but we're all driven by this idea of equity and respect. So I would like to hear from all three of you, starting with Carolyn, then with Irina, then with Carolina, about their experiences. If you feel like you should talk about this. If you're not, then you talk about something else. But I want to hear about this because it is in the news and it's something interesting. To us at MIT, we graduate 52% women, so we don't really see this as an issue. But most of academia is still far behind. Most of industry is still far behind, engineering and all these things. So Carolyn I know has faced some issues with this, but she has risen and to the challenge and gone straight through it. But go ahead, Carolyn. Tell us what your experience has been.
Andreas, you must have listened to the Bloomberg panel discussion I was on, where I was asked these very direct, difficult questions. I must be quite honest, I think throughout my life, my entire professional life in the oil industry, software, as well as financial industries, I've literally been the only woman or one of very few in most of the teams that I've worked on and operated in traveling around the world as one of the only women. And I've had tremendous and wonderful support from men, but it's not always easy. Men and women are not exactly the same in many ways. But we both have both sexes. Any gender identification has a lot of value to add. And I think it's through incredibly diverse, open teams that you can achieve spectacular results. And for me, that's what we have seen with MyCoHab in Namibia. I mean, you just look at the diversity of the team we've got on the ground. We started with two very young women, highly qualified from Namibian universities. Chris and I interviewed them and we accepted them for their job, and we took them for lunch at a restaurant in Namibia. And it was just so humbling and fascinating because it was the first time they'd actually been to a restaurant in their lives. And they have honors and master's degrees, and it just gives you a very different perspective. They've been phenomenal in leading locally and running cultivation for MyCoHab. So I think diversity, diverse teams, open-mindedness, and just respect for everybody's difference is key. So my experience, I've had some interesting, challenging times, not always been plain sailing, but yeah, overall.
I wonder if Irina has something to add to this.
Yeah. So obviously, I am a little bit on the younger side, and being in my mid-20s right now, I acknowledge like the world that the corporate world that I've entered into has already had a lot of work put into it. I'm a queer woman of color, and specifically I am biracial as well, so I'm half Mexican and half Chinese. So I don't see people like this ever, right? In pretty much any field, any room that I walk into, like, but what that gives, and like I think what a lot of people have done a lot of work on is like creating an atmosphere and a community that is very inclusive and like ways of going about like, hey, I can see you as a person and not be racist towards you, not be sexist towards you, and not like, and not ignoring that, but rather like factoring it in to the equation, because there's a lot of stuff that like that gives and that values, and like, you know, you have such a fascinating history and like your background and where you came from and all that stuff factors into how you navigate the world. And that's the kind of stuff that I noticed in my career as a designer, was like when we were able to really fully appreciate the full humanity of people, like their nationalities, their gender, their race, and their experiences. That was something that really brought out so many ideas. And I noticed it in spaces where that wasn't a thing, where that didn't exist, and how much people shut off. And that limited the possibilities that we could have. And I would learn things about people where I was like, that would have been so helpful 3 months ago on this project that we were working on if I had known that about you. But we weren't in an atmosphere that allowed us to do that. And that's something like one person at a time can help create, in building some openness. And as a Texan, like we Texans will always talk to you, but we'll talk bad behind your back.
Now you're putting a
sometimes.
label on yourself.
I know, and it's what it is. And I think like having that background, like I noticed that like my girlfriend, for example, is from New York and has a harder time just like being open and friendly and just being like, hey, like I'm gonna share a lot of information with this stranger right now. And it's like, yeah, like of course you wouldn't, that's not how New York culture is at all. It would be super weird, super intrusive. But in a workplace, like we should be able to feel safe and free enough to at least present our most authentic selves. And that's something like, I'm just on the shoulders of a bunch of other people in that, and I'm very, very lucky to have had that be the vast majority of my experience thus far.
And I wonder what Carolina has to say about the same issue, but from a fantastically different perspective. Coming in from Poland, having been to Namibia, having been to America many times, you have a nice perspective on this from many, many countries. Tell us about it.
Thank you, Andreas. That's actually, I'm pleasantly surprised by this question in general, and I must agree.
It was not in the program.
And before I answer, I just wanted to say that we have also Luisa, collaborator, that we can bring her on the screen. She's in a panelist waiting room, so we can have her, and I will I will answer the question. So I very much agree with Irina. Especially regarding the culture of openness. And I don't see, basically, like, I think the gender for me is a little bit like this blind spot. So I don't necessarily read myself so much as having obstacles as a being, female human being in the industry or in the areas that are sometimes male dominated. I think it's more about the culture that we create and the openness and space for people who are having, like, I don't know, different speed, different ways of expression to be able to express. Because often, like, we are in the environments when those who are the loudest and the most forceful dominate. and that shuts down other very valuable and interesting voices. So keeping this balance is for me crucial, and it goes across the genders. So like across like sexes and genders, and I have like a very good experience with working with male colleagues who are like creating this kind of environment within like our group. So yeah.
Now, the reason you asked me why I asked this question is because I noticed that in this particular business, the Myco business, the CEO of the original Myco Hub is Carolyn. The CEO of the Myco Hub Austin is Irina. The CEO, director, de facto CEO of Namibia, Myco Hub Namibia, or the director on the ground is Samantha. And I wonder. Have we turned the corner? And now we have a bunch of female CEOs. Isn't that great?
Maybe we shouldn't think about it that
Maybe
way.
we shouldn't.
Turning
Maybe you're right.
corner. It's just like
Let's
the
not put
competent,
labels.
Okay.
individuals in charge.
It's
Love it.
like I honestly, like, I'm someone who, especially as like being a person who's neurodivergent, and like and a little bit of, you know, I guess I am an engineer, right? That's my background. And like, I'm a big fan of labels. I need labels all over the place. I think like where I struggle is when labels are used to make like barrier giving assumptions.
Oh, a very good point.
And I think that's something like that exists, right? Like that's not something like, I'm in the nonprofit space. The number of women who are like executive directors in the nonprofit space is much higher than the number of women who are CEOs in a corporate space, right? And
Why
then
is
you
that?
look at
Why do you think that's the case?
there's so many different reasons. And like, I think part of it is like the ways in which like people, if women are to have children, right? And like oftentimes it is pressured there that is like, you're the one who's not going to be working anymore in a heteronormative environment. You have sometimes like you have instances of, hey, like I see this young man who's a lot like me, and I'm going to bring him up in the company. And, you know, supporting people who look and act and are like you, and helping build these people up. And it's like slowly but surely we're seeing other instances of people being brought up. Honestly, there's like a really great Pixar short called Pearl, P-U-R-L, that kind of like exemplifies this in a very easy to understand way, where like the woman in this is not actually like a woman, but a ball of yarn. And she literally knits herself to fit into this like very finance bro-y kind of environment and act like all of those people. And when another ball of yarn comes and joins the company, it's like, oh, do I make that decision to kind of continue to act like everyone that I've melded myself into, and then, you know, ostracize this ball of yarn, or do I go back to how I was and allow for some of that diversity and some of that like difference in how the individuals present in an environment. And it's all way easier said than done, right? Like to have a diverse environment, it is really difficult. Like people will be different. Like you work with someone like my uncle, for example, is autistic, and like working with him is like I have to keep a lot of stuff in mind when I am engaging with him. I have to keep track of that and do extra work so he can fully communicate, so he can be his full self and contribute. You know, it's not easy.
Well, thank you for this. Now, we've run out of time, but I want to give Carolyn in South Africa one more spot to talk a little bit about what do you see, Carolyn, as the potential beyond making food mushrooms? The possibilities of this mycotexture technology are quite limitless, aren't they? they're quite boundless.
Yeah.
And you've seen so many. Can you take us out from this with the next couple of minutes that we have, then we have to shut down. But can you take us out on this vision of what else can we do with these mushrooms? I know you've made a fantastic chart with all the technologies that you can think of. So tell us a little bit, idea about the future, and give us a positive spin on this so we can all go home feeling good about the future of the planet.
Yeah, I think, well, technology that was, probably it's been around since hundreds of millions of years. Mycelium has pre-existed on the planet before any other life. And I think, the Western world's only waking up to it now. I think we kicked MycoHab off in 2018. Actually, MycoHab Namibia only started 2019. And there were very few mycelium initiatives. There were quite a few. There were a few that were making headlines, but the explosion we've seen in this field from 2019 up till today is just mind-blowing. So as Irina said in her presentation and Chris alluded to, so from a Chris and our application point of view, currently we're looking at building materials and food, as well as carbon, other ecosystem services products that naturally all sort of are produced from the same process effectively. As Irina said, we're already seeing leathers being produced. You've seen meatless meats as another one, but packaging, insulation, we're starting to see furniture. We're seeing just a myriad of new technologies coming up. A very exciting application, but very new, is what we would call mycoremediation, is using mycelium to remediate highly contaminated land and water. And this is of particular interest when used with other technologies like phytoremediation, which is using plants to remediate. For example, oil spills, very toxic, poisonous mining waste, highly contaminated water. The results are just mind-blowing. So what we're starting to see is huge companies internationally, big industries internationally, starting to seriously turn to mycelium technologies to look at ways to remediate the disasters that we're creating and are leaving behind on the planet. So that's just a taste, Andreas. I mean, you know far more what's happening in the medical world. So.
Speaking of medical, Dimitri here calls mycelium technologies the kidneys of the planet, right? Because it is actually one way that we can clean up the place. So, unless we have questions from the crowd or from the internet for this panel, we are 26 minutes overdue here. We went over. I want to thank Caroline, who came all the way from South Africa to talk to us, and it's in the middle of the night for her. Thank you so much. I don't know if you can see me. Thank you. I want to thank Carolina for becoming a panelist in the last second, Irina for giving us a nice speech, and Luisa, who couldn't connect, Dimitris for, of course, being wonderful, and he calls us to action to be label-free and inspired and less mean to each other. Yeah. Well, with this, we conclude today's Osmocosm first day. Tomorrow, we start at 9 o'clock. At the end of tomorrow, we have something. I forget what it is. Boston. Tomorrow is Friday. Tomorrow, we visit the Boston Museum of Science at the end of this, after the whole day of lectures. Also, tomorrow, we have 3 fantastic keynotes. We have Claire Guest, sorry, that's on Saturday. We have Patty Mays, Professor Patty Mays will speak in the morning. Then we have Professor Bob Langer, who will speak in the afternoon. And we also have Manolis Kellis, who will also speak. So we have a star-studded lineup tomorrow. Please join at 9 o'clock online or in person, and we'll see you then. Thank you so very much.
Can I add something?
Go ahead.
We have, 9 high school students that are coming tomorrow to watch part of this. So this is very important for us to pass the word to high school students.
Students of all ages are welcome. Please pass on the word for tomorrow, and I'll see you then. Thank you so much.